Once again I was looking around, kind of struggling as I do to find a new key moment in video game history, and realized I had sort of vastly overlooked something. Something so simple and so basic, we all kind of take it for granted. However, it's something that's not always been around in first-person shooters, and pretty much anyone who sat down and spent any time at all going back to a game like Doom will tell you feels off. You can't look up. In fact, you can't really look around at all, save side to side. Aiming at the time felt simple. You just got far enough away from your target and you fire and the bullets would sort of magically home in and hit that target. I mean, it sort of seems that way by today's standards. How else would you hit someone several feet above while you were basically aiming at the wall directly below them? So let's take a look at early FPS games and note how they played, how Marathon began to alter the vision, and where it's actually taken us. I know a lot of us, well, ones of a certain age, will remember games like Wolfenstein. The slow-paced movement of the enemies in the rather tight rooms, well, okay, compared to modern games at least, made it so most of the fights took place on, well, flat surfaces. Most people weren't perched in any elevated areas or places that would be hard to shoot. This was in part due to the newness of the genre and the limitations of what they could pull off, because, frankly, in Wolfenstein 3D you couldn't look up and down in any angle, and well, you really couldn't look anywhere you weren't facing, in fact. So this would actually change a little bit by the time games like Doom came out in 1993. Enemies would fly in from various different angles, be on pillars, or other such elevated platforms, but it never really hurt the main gameplay. Why, you ask? Magical homing bullets. That's why. In all seriousness, though, people just really hadn't worked out how to use the mouse along with a keyboard, or just assumed that people weren't necessarily using one. You have to remember that Windows 3.1, one of the earlier Windows operating systems to use a mouse that would draw much of a crowd at least, didn't come out until 1992. This isn't to say the mouse didn't exist or wasn't in use. The first instance of a mouse actually goes way further back than the 90s. So far, in fact, it may actually need its own video, but that's sort of beside the point. You see, DOS was still pretty dominant as an operating system around this time, so it's possible they went under the assumption that people might not even have a mouse. So it was that Doom came out with the same design that Wolfenstein had used, which still worked and still loads of fun. However, not long after this, a relatively young company you may know of hit the scene with something big. That young company was Bungie, and they would release Marathon in 1994. Not their first release, but still pretty early on in their life as a company. Now, this game allowed players to free look for the very first time in a title. I know many of us never really saw or played this game at all, as it kind of had a fairly limited release when it first came out, limited to just the Mac and the Apple Pippin. Yeah, for those of you who didn't know, Apple actually tried to get into the console market in 1995. Why haven't you heard about it? Well, it didn't go very far, that's why. However, this didn't stop Bungie from doing some pioneering of their own in this game space with this game. The story in this game was actually pretty big, and more involved than many of the games that came before it, involving the Safat and the before two alien species whose names I know I butchered because they seem impronounceable to me, starting an attack on a ship called Marathon. While trying to repel the invasion, you realize that the AI Durandal had actually gone rampant and was intent on destroying the ship. So, not only must you repel the aliens, but you have to stop a rampant AI as well. This game was actually a really big hit, spawning off 2 more games, lauded primarily for its story, its use of dynamic lighting, and the free look system that they had put into the game. It was such a big hit, in fact, that Bungie would look to it again down the road as inspiration for their still popular Halo franchise. But what about Dark Forces, all maybe 5 of you are saying? And to those 5 I say, damn, I love you guys. However, no. Dark Forces did innovate in its own way, but Marathon launched nearly a year before Dark Forces. And Dark Forces was either influenced or had the same idea, looking at the mouse going, why am I not using this thing to look around again? At the same time that the development team for Marathon did. No, where Dark Forces influenced the FPS genre was its ability to jump. But that, like so many stories, is for another day. What did you guys think of this one? How many of you actually got a chance to play Marathon, and if so, how well did you like it? Did any of you have it on the Mac back in the day, or play it later when it eventually made it to PC or other platforms down the road? Let me know in the comments. For now though, I'd like to thank all of you who made it this far in the video. I always appreciate it when you guys take time out of your day and spend it on my channel. If I could ask you for one more favor, please leave this video a like, and if you haven't, consider following the channel. That helps me out an absolute ton. Until we meet again though, have a wonderful day, and happy gaming.